Hello and welcome to the Leaderonomics Show. My name is Sarah and today we have a very special guest with us, Pallavi Srivastava. She is the Asia Pacific Talent Leader of IBM Global Technology Services. Thank you for being with us today, Pallavi.
Thank you for inviting.
Okay, now maybe you could start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, your background and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, well, I'm originally from India. And now I have been in Singapore for the last 10 years. Overall, have about 23 years of experience in HR. Initially, about 10 to 11 years was still based out of India. I moved to New York for a bit, worked with IBM there, and then shifted to Singapore. But in IBM, have spent about 20 years.
Yeah.
I originally started my career as a HR consultant.
So you've always been in HR?
I've always been in HR. It's a passion the function is a passion for me. I find a lot of possibilities, and we can talk more about that.
Sure.
But yes, I've explored HR from all its facets as an HR consultant. I have taught organizational behavior to students in an MBA class. And of course, I have been in corporate HR for the last 12 years now. Explored functions in talent, in recruitment, compensation, HR business partnering, and now
practically everything, pretty much.
And regional and global roles both. So yes, very rich experience in HR, and very grateful to my company that's given me a lot of opportunities to really explore this function that's coming of age for the last 5-7 years in a very big way.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. You're kind of focusing a lot on talent development now as well, right? What are the kind of challenges that you've seen in the last 5 to 7 years in this area globally, or even specifically where you're based at this point?
Right. So I think a part of the reason why I'm here today is to talk about talent transformation. At this conference, and the reason everyone is talking about talent transformation is because it's a challenge. Digital technologies, including the business disruptions, the speed at which the change is happening in the world, has caused people to rethink, and HR departments, I don't like the word department, but HR function to really rethink its role in being able to develop talent. And the primary challenge that I see is that the way we used to grow leaders, develop leaders internally, we had certain set formats, we had a certain way of assessing leaders, there were certain competencies that you groom them for, and we are finding that the people who are now kind of ready to take on this leadership role, they're actually not ready to lead in this digital disruptive environment. So we are seeing that everything that we were working towards, succession planning typically starts about 5 to 7 years before a person takes that role, and so you've been developing people for in a certain way for the last few years, and then you find that when it's actually the time to place the leader in a particular role, you find there are gaps. So I think that's happening. Yes, that's happening with a lot of companies, and that's also the reason why you're having to look outside. But looking outside has its own set of challenges for a company like ours, which is a global company, very matrixed, quite complex in the technology and the spaces that we operate in. So when you bring people from outside, there is a learning curve for them too, and it's not so easy to just assimilate into such a large organization. So from a talent perspective, we are having to bridge that gap. The internal people, how to get them to be more market focused, how to and we don't have the luxury of time now. So actually you cannot wait 5-7 years to help groom someone succeed for a role. You need people ready very quickly. So our speed of operating, our speed of being able to assess, our abilities to actually identify what are the core leadership strengths needed, and they seem to be different for different types of roles. We've had to really rethink our approaches, and we've been doing that in IBM for some time now.
Okay.
So that's very consistent globally as well as in Asia Pacific.
All right, excellent. Now we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back here on the Leaderonomics Show. Hi, welcome back to the Leaderonomics Show with Pallavi Srivastava. Now, Pallavi, we were talking a lot about how much things have changed, in the work environment, and how HR leaders are facing the challenge of equipping their people for a sudden change when they've already been working towards a different goal,
Right.
I'm curious, when it comes to the gig economy, how much of an effect do you think the gig economy really has on well-established companies worldwide?
Right. I think the gig economy is going to have an effect on all facets of life because it's not so much about the company, it's about the preferences of the people. I was actually reading a research by an organizational development institute in Australia that said that 1 in 3 Australians are actually casual workers, right? So it's a preference of people that is driving some of this. Some countries culturally don't go towards it, so traditional economies don't go towards it. So in India, I think you don't have preference for casual work as much as you have it in Australia. But irrespective, I think all large organizations cannot afford to ignore talent that is coming from this space. And gig economy is not just about experienced people. Gig economy today is also high schoolers who can code. So for tech companies like us, we are not waiting for people to finish their college degrees. In fact, we call them new collars. And new collars are basically, they're not blue collar or white collar, there's no stigma attached to it, but they are still not in the workforce. They are still completing their education, but we are bringing them into the workforce because they are able to, they have skills and capabilities to code, and we need that. IBM's youngest Watson developer is, I think, a 10 or 12-year-old boy.
Wow.
So, the world is very different, and anywhere that we find those skills and capabilities, we need to grab. So I think every company will explore the gig economy, whether it is large or small, but the extent might differ based on where they are in the world.
Sure, and I would think, similar to what IBM believes in, HR leaders would need to value people where they're at and not kind of like evaluate them the traditional way, right?
Yes, that's right. And so it's going to, we'll have to redefine talent models. We will have to redefine how we look at our workforce. There will always, in my opinion, there will always be a more attention towards your own full-time employees, because they have more invested in the company. They haven't taken a casual approach to the company's values. They're not outside of the company. So you will always have more attention, more focus, more investment on the talent that is full-time employed. But as I said, because we cannot afford to ignore the talent that's coming out of the gig economy, there will be approaches to evaluate them, there will be approaches to reward them, etc. But of course, for example, retention may not be a big focus area for gig economy people because they want to move on. They want to move on. So it's going to be much more mutually beneficial associations rather than somebody who wants to stay on, build a different kind of career with the company.
Yeah. Right. And why do you think the gig economy happened, and is there a way that companies can kind of, we talked a lot about what they can do to recognize talent, but I would think the gig economy is really because people just kind of want not so much the rat race life, they want to be proud of their work. Can well-established companies provide the same kind of benefits in that environment?
So you're right that the reason why gig economy evolved is because people have preferences for more work-life balance, more flexibility. But you also have to look at it from the perspective that it is because of the digital technologies that are available. You have ability to connect from home, and that's one of the reasons you have an internet. If you have a phone and a modem connection at home, you are able to connect anywhere in the world. You have technology that gives video interviews. You have technology that you can have meetings sitting remotely. So technology has actually enabled the gig economy, and that is why it has started to thrive a little bit. Big companies have been using this for a long time. IBM used to be, has been one of the pioneers of flexible workplace arrangements. So I don't think there is a conflict here in terms of why people prefer gig economies. But the space of life, you're right that a lot of people are looking for work-life balance, and they feel they can operate equally well when they're sitting out of their home offices. So that has started happening more. I also read in that same research that in Australia, people will be willing to take about 20% of pay cut to be able to work from home. And there are those kind of studies that is happening. We have a huge focus on trying to bring women back to work. And if we wanted to do that, I think, again, women who can operate from their home, may not be full-time, would be a great source to tap for talent. So we cannot afford to ignore talent wherever it comes from. And so we will have to continue to leverage technology to make that more seamless, because one of the paradoxes that we are starting to observe is that while the technology is enabling people to be able to operate anywhere, the way going forward things will be where you need people to come together as close-knit teams to innovate and brainstorm. We will need people to start coming back to office. So you would have read in the news some years back, Yahoo had started that. Even within IBM, we have started to ask people to come to office a little bit more frequently because we want them to come and co-create and innovate. That's the other part. So while flexible technologies will be more and more available, we will see a push of people coming back to offices to start operating in that world. And so we don't know where this is exactly headed, but we have to be ready for both forces to work together.
That's right.
Gig economy people and the
it has its place.
Yes, right.
All right. Talking about changes, the liquid workforce, the gig economy. A lot of people are saying that nowadays you need to be flexible. You need to be able to do more than just one thing, and that really kind of puts people into: are you a generalist or a specialist?
Right.
Now, where do you think generalists will thrive in, and is there a place for specialists anymore in our current ever-changing world?
I think categorizing people as generalists and specialists is kind of a little pass. I think the most important skill set that's going to have an impact on whether people are relevant is the ability to work with data and analytics. So whether you're a generalist, even in a function like HR where, we are not technology people, you still need to know how to work with data and analytics. And so we are seeing that change within HR. So, generalists were typically HR business partners who, you could work across functions. It's not really about that. It's about the ability to work with data analytics and emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, etc. This will impact, so these new technologies will impact every function, every role. It doesn't matter at what level you are. So the conversations will no longer really be about whether you're a generalist or specialist. I think you still have to have that T-shaped concept of skill sets. You have to have depth in certain areas, and you have to have breadth, because the market forces are changing so rapidly that if you just keep going deep in your skill set and you're not very, very clear about how to apply it across different, you will become irrelevant. So skills need to be fungible. Technology is changing in 6 months, so what you learned 6 months back, it may not be relevant.
Absolutely.
And so it is important for people to be market aware. It's important for people to know what's what capabilities they need to build in the future to be relevant. And as I said, data and analytics are going to be like what typing used to be for a lot of people. Everybody needs to know. It's like the
language of the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that will be the key differentiator on how talent moves forward.
Excellent. Right. Great thoughts, great insights. We're going to take a quick break now, and we will be right back here on the Leaderonomics Show with Pallavi Srivastava. Hi, welcome back to the Leaderonomics Show with Pallavi Srivastava from IBM Global Technology and Services.
Global Technology Services.
Technology Services, that's right. It's a mouthful.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's time for the Thinkonomics Challenge.
Okay.
You have 1 minute to answer as many questions as you can, and this will help us get to know her just a little bit more better. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Now, if you could bring one character to life from your favorite book, what would it be? Or who would it be?
One character to life from your
favorite book.
Actually, it'll be Harry Potter.
Oh, excellent. All right. To what degree have you actually controlled the course that your life has taken?
I think I've controlled most of it. Very much, yeah, control most of it. I know that we don't have much time, so.
All right. Is the world better with or without reality TV shows?
Without.
Without, all right. What would you do if you didn't have to earn money in order to survive?
What would I do if I didn't?
Let's say you didn't have to work, you didn't have to earn money, to survive. You could do anything, right?
Oh, if I could do anything, I would probably be, trying to sing somewhere.
Lovely.
Yeah, something in the art and culture field, not so boring.
Sure. And if you are a parent, are you a parent?
I am a parent, yes.
What kind of future would you want your children to live in?
I think somewhere where they feel safe to be themselves, right? Yeah, in an inclusive environment.
I like that. Yeah. Well, time's up.
Okay.
That went by really fast.
That wasn't too bad.
Yeah, not at all. You did really well.
All right.
We've got 5 great answers from you.
Okay, great.
Thank you for playing this,
right.
this game that we never let anyone miss.
Okay, it's an interesting game.
Yeah. So I just have a few more questions.
Sure.
Just want to get your insights on leadership. We often realize in hindsight that we could have done things better as leaders, right? Or even throughout our leadership development journey. And if you could go back and just give a piece of wisdom or advice to your younger self, what do you think that would be?
I think the advice that I would give to my younger self would be to keep an open mind. And the reason I say that is early in my career, when I took HR as a field, I had very different ideas and thoughts about the function itself, right? It was much more internal focused. It was a lot more process. It was a lot more about transactions. And the one that I really hate about that part was thinking of my function as a support function. What I would advise today to my younger self is to think of your function as a business function.
Yeah, because that's where
we are, and to think about it as, and also to bring external insights back into your, so keeping an open mind, looking outside in rather than just focused very internally.
Excellent. And what would your leadership advice be for other HR leaders out there? Like if there's a key attribute that they need in today's world, what do you think that would be?
As I said, I think firstly a total mindset shift to calling themselves or thinking of themselves as support function. So they need to move away from that and think of themselves as a business function that deals with people. Sure. That's number one. 2 is absolutely get skilled yourself in data and analytics, and make sure that you're driving that actively with entire HR organization, exploring every avenue to bring that skill set into the workforce. Right. I think those would be my 2 most important pieces of advice. If those 2 happen, then they will already have a place with the CEO to drive change, because HR's role in the future is actually going to be much more impactful than it has ever been, because the future is really going to be about driving talent towards digital, and that's a huge transformation that everyone has to go through. HR will have a very, very pivotal role to play in that. So HR leaders across the world have to open their minds, not think traditional. They are change agents, and they have to be change agents, and they have to start thinking like that.
Excellent. And speaking of, just preparing for the future, when it comes to succession planning, I know different companies have very different views on that, right? So there is this whole thing about giving everyone an opportunity to grow in their space, but then other companies prefer to kind of like zero in on those that shine, the cream of the crop. And, What are your thoughts on that?
So, so if you look at leadership succession planning as a pyramid through which people grow, right? The yield that will come out at the top is really a function of the quality that moves up the chain, right? And the quality is never a static thing. The people that you groomed at the lower level, they may not stay on, right? Aspirations change, people change. So firstly, you have to have a continuous focus on talent. Secondly, leadership as a competency doesn't really start at the 2 levels below or 3 levels below. The competencies start getting visible much earlier. If I were to think about my company, we call our leaders the moment they start leading a team, when they start influencing a group of people towards outcomes. Our people managers, the people that manage teams, they're leaders already. So that's the point at which you have to change the approach in which you evaluate them, from moving away from profits and actual tasks and activities and looking at the outcomes on that to how they are driving the team. So the skill sets and the assessments have to change at that first level when the person first starts to lead a team of people. And you have to continuously focus and infuse the pipeline, not just through internally grown talent, but you have to continuously infuse it from external talent. That's very important for a robust mix, of people. There's an analogy. Alloys are always stronger, from pure metals, right? And that's because you in a certain proportion you mix external, and that's very important for a strong organization to infuse the right amount of talent from internal as an external. And so it's very, very important to make sure that the pipeline continuously infuses fresh talent. Otherwise, it can become a very stagnant one. So grooming from within, bringing from outside, the approaches have to change, and you have to make sure that what then finally reaches the role that you are planning the succession for has a good set of strong people that you can choose from. Only then it makes for a good succession plan.
All right. And last question. If you could give advice to fresh graduates specifically, I know you said that you had, some words of wisdom for yourself at a younger age, but for fresh graduates specifically, what advice would it be?
I think I would advise them to look for work which has a purpose. Instead of looking for workplaces which have free Coca-Cola machines or have a beanbag or beanbags. Not to say that does not have a space. I think those help to work, but don't go looking for work because of the workplace. Go to look for work which with companies that have a purpose. That will give you a lot more motivation. That will keep you grounded to yourself. I'm very, very proud of the millennials. Actually, they have very fresh thinking, and it's important to harness that talent. So so millennials just need to make sure that they work for the larger goal and they are true to themselves. They can bring their whole authentic self to work, and for that it is important to know what is valuable to them overall. So sometimes I find that they might be seduced by things that are more glamorous and things like that. Yes, so keep that in your mind. I can't say it enough. Make sure that you have data and analytics as a capability, and bring that to your workplace. It doesn't matter which discipline you are from, whether as I said, whether you're from HR or you're pure techie. That's going to be a very important capability.
Excellent. Pallavi, it's been so good having you here on the show with us. We've loved hearing your thoughts.
Thank you.
And this has been the Leaderonomics Show with Pallavi Srivastava, the Asia Pacific Talent Leader of IBM Global Technology Services. Thanks for watching.